This one we're going to take a look at a couple of my old ENG cameras. Well, one of them's old. I've had it for 20 years. The other one I just bought, and that was that Betacam SX. Couldn't fire up the JVC. I haven't used it in a long time, and of course, it doesn't work because, after all, it is a JVC. I should have known not to buy one of those and spend $7,500 when I bought it in 2000. As I prepared to do my ENG camera shootout, I figured you guys might like to see both of these beasts that I've got sitting here. The one on the left, of course, is the Betacam SX PAL format camera. And the camera on the right, this is my JVC. This was my last ENG camera that I bought. I used to have one like this, and I actually had the high 8 version of one of these cameras as well. Back when I was doing a lot of production work. When the digital craze hit, I got rid of my analog gear and I went with this, which was an excellent camera. This is, of course, a professional DV. If you look down the top here, professional DV. It uses the standard mini DV tapes, but it records in a different format than the consumer. It's compatible, but it's a different, and how it's different, how this is different than the run-of-the-mill mini DV camcorder that many of you had, was the way that the audio was laid down. Consumer DV cameras used unlocked audio, and what unlocked audio means is that the clock for the audio was not referenced to the video clock. Why is that important? Well, because, at least on NTSC, I can't speak for PAL because I know nothing about how PAL works, but I'm sure it worked on the same similar principle. NTSC will use what's called drop frame timecode, and that's because there's not exactly 30 frames to the second. There's actually 29.97 frames per second. Unlocked audio, the audio is running based on a 30 frame per second clock, but the video is running on 29.97 frames per second, 59.97 frame or fields per second. So what happens is the audio gets out of sync with the video. Now, some smart ass is going to say, well, I played my tapes and they all played fine. Yes, they will. If you are watching them off the camera, they'll play fine. If you're making a copy from your camera to your crappy VHS machine, they will play fine. When you import the files into a nonlinear editor, they don't play fine. The audio gets out of sync with the video, and it happens on every editor and every non-locked audio videotape format. This was done for a reason. Okay? The manufacturers wanted professionals to buy these cameras. Sony wanted professionals to buy into their DV cam format. This is equivalent in terms of quality to DV cam because they both record in the same format. It's identical. The only difference between DV cam and the consumer and the professional DV format is the tape speed. This one here, the tape will run 60 minutes. If this was put into a Sony DV cam, it would run, I think it's 43 minutes because the track width is wider on DV cam. Sony said that that would reduce the dropouts, and it probably did because the track pitch was a bit wider, so there wasn't as big a dropout problem with these cameras. But, saying that, DigiBeta and Betacam SX will blow this out of the water because of the color space. This records in 422 color space. This one, NTSC version, records in 411 color space, and the PAL version was 420 color space. If you don't understand color space, look it up. It'll explain the difference. But essentially, this camera with 422 has twice the color space of this one with 411, which basically translates into 4 pixels of luminance, 1 pixel of blue, 1 pixel of red. This one, 4 pixels of luminance, 2 pixels of blue, 2 pixels of red. And the next version up, which was the full digital professional broadcast cameras, was 444. So you had 4 pixels of luminance, 4 pixels of red, 4 pixels of blue. Don't talk about green. Green is derived from the red and the blue minus the luminance. So, out of the box, this has twice the color space, color resolution wise, as this. In terms of the resolution of the picture, they should both be on par with each other. Anyway, we're going to look at this camera because I do believe this camera has a problem. See if I can get it to load a tape and actually do something. That way, when I take this one out and do some shooting, I can take this one out too, and we can do some shooting on this, and we can look at the difference in the picture between the two. Even though I don't, the video will either have to be rendered in NTSC or PAL. I can't really intermix them. I guess I can, but they might not look that good doing that. Anyway, you get my drift. If these were both NTSC cameras, this one here still will have a better picture than this one. Anyway, that's we know that this camera works. Let's see if we can get this one to work. So this JVC would operate off of the NP1 battery system. My NP1 batteries have been dead for a million years. I can still use the same power connector. That's the nice thing about the broadcast gear and the professional gear, is that the power connectors were all the same. So when I fire this one up, let's see if it'll even turn on. Will it turn on? That's the big question. Will it turn on? And the answer to that is yes. It actually has a picture. And let's just put up color bars. I can remember how to do that. There's my color bar generator. And we can set the brightness. Viewfinder controls are all dirty. We can set up our viewfinder. This camera does actually produce a very good picture. I mean, you will be impressed. If I can get this thing to record anything, you will be impressed with the quality that this camera produces, because it does produce a broadcastable picture. It is very good. It was expensive. This was about 7,500 bucks, I think, when I bought it in 2000. So I've had it for 22 years. I only used it for. I mean, this was the biggest waste of money, because I bought this camera and a couple of years later everything went HD, and I was buying another camera. I replaced this one with the what was it, the HDR FX1, the HDV camera, which uses the same tapes but records in high definition format. I know that there's going to be an issue with this. I'm just going to pop the side off of it before I even load the tape, because I want to observe what it's doing, because I'm sure that it's not going to work. I can pretty much guarantee it's not going to work, and I want to observe what it does, because it's likely going to eat my tape. It did work the last time I put it away, but again, I haven't turned this camera on in so many years. It just sits. It sits on a tripod as a decoration to remind me of when I was in the business and used this camera. Okay, I gotta pull that side cover off. I got all metal. And then to see what I'm doing, I guess I have to. They heat sink the ICs. The heat sink right there on the side of the cabinet. I guess I gotta swing down this board in order to see the transport. I just want to see whether it's going to thread correctly or not. Alright, now this should, I think it folds down. Maybe I'm wrong. How can you tell? I'm not 100% sure what screws to take out. I think that's it. And the whole thing just, we can see the transport in here. I'll throw some light in there and reposition the camera so you guys can see where the tape goes and how it threads, and how this is different than the consumer cameras, how they work. I see plugs here. I wonder if it has to be plugged into the camera section. I bet you it has to be plugged in. Let's just put the board back in here. Let's pop that back in, and then we'll try it and see whether it will attempt to load a tape. I just noticed those connectors around there. say, I don't think I've ever tried to power this up with the board out before. Pop the plugs back in, and I don't think I need to put the screws in just yet, but we'll power up the camera and see if it'll power up. Yeah, okay, I got a picture. Let's just see whether this will actually load a tape. Fingers crossed it'll load the tape. Okay. Okay, it actually loaded. Alright, maybe it's going to work. Operate warning error on here. Wonder where that is. Let's just see if it'll play. I'll hit stop. And we'll hit play. It may require that the lid is closed in order to record. There's a little latch that locks into here. I don't know if it'll work without the cover on. Just throw the side cover on it and see whether that will get this thing to turn on and do something. What I should do is I should crack apart an NP1. I've got a couple of NP1s. I'm sure some of the cells are dead in them. I should crack a few of them apart, swap cells over for cells that are good, and make a good battery pack out of it, and then put the battery into my, I got a charger for the NP1 battery, and I haven't showed you guys that yet. I should show you guys the charger. You'll get a kick out of the charger. It was $1,500. The most expensive battery charger I've ever purchased. I bought it back when I had my Betacam and my High 8, and it just so happens that this one uses the same batteries. But that other Betacam will also use them as well. I can pull the Anton Bauer backplate off and put this on because they're all interchangeable with each other. NP1 was the standard that the cameras came with, and then the Anton Bauer was the aftermarket. Alright, let me just close this down. That's a latch. So let's just see whether it'll still give me that warning or whether it'll actually let me play a tape. Will it play? Hey, it's playing. Cool. Okay, there's a recording on here and it's in DV mode. What's it say? It says, warning. BTR warning, hard. Okay, error. So something errored out on here. It was playing for a second. Let's just see whether it'll eject the tape. It's probably going to eat the tape is what's going to happen. Came up with error 7302. I bet you it's going to eat the tape. I'll unplug it and see if that'll reset it. Try to eject the tape now. Didn't eat the tape. You notice on the side here it says audio lock, right? Because locked audio. Let's just try this again. Will it play or will it not play? If we look at the viewfinder, if I hit play, it is playing. Am I going to get that error come up again? I'm getting the error again. So it does have an error. It does have a problem. I'll try rewinding the tape. It's rewinding okay. Just see whether it just needs to move the tape a bit. Try the fast forward as well. fast forward? Will it fast forward? Or will it jam? Okay, it's moving. I'm just going to run this thing back and forth a few times and see whether it'll actually go into play. And maybe that just the it's been sitting so long without being used that it's got a problem, you know, or gummed up. So maybe just running it back and forth a few times will actually make it work, which would be nice. Should make a video using this camera. Wouldn't you guys like to see that? It would be in standard definition, obviously, but it would be possible if it would actually work. So far, I'm 33 minutes in. I love it. It's got a tape counter that'll go up to 10 hours, but the maximum tape length you could put on this thing was, I think, 80 minutes. Frame counter. So hours, minutes, seconds, frames. Although this could be, you could have this displaying control or user bits, and you could set the clock, so you could actually have this thing displaying real time, because you could set the clock on here preset. I forget how to do it. You could set it in free run, time code generator, and record run. So you could set the time of day and it would record the time of day. That's why it has a 24-hour clock, because it can I even got a little note here on what to do, how to switch it. Time code 0, switch to preset, press hold, reset, preset, switch to regen. I got my error again on here. I wonder why that error is there. And it says VTR warning hard is what's showing up in the screen here, right, if you can read that. But definitely it's got a problem, that's for sure. If I unplug the power, plug it back in, and see if it will rewind. So there's a problem with the transport, which is too bad. And interesting enough, if I take the tape out and put it back in, it's going to rewind the tape. There's nothing here. There we go. It's only had 53 minutes recorded on it. But it doesn't appear to be reading the time code properly. It might be dirty heads, for that matter. I doubt it, but just the way it's not reading the time code properly, it could be contaminated heads as well, amongst other things. Should put this on the monitor and see if I get a picture on my plasma. There's the picture right off the camera. It's got color bars built in as well. Nice color bar generated, but you see that picture is beautiful. Right? Unlike all those other little cameras I've used where you can see the jaggies around the edges, like the low resolution chips. Look at the picture off this thing. It's just amazing. For standard definition, this is just, it's got a really good picture. Okay, this is rewound back to the beginning. Now I'm just going to try playing this tape and just see what, if anything happens. It'll probably shut down after a few seconds. Well, there's color bars off the tape. Is it going to play? And then I get the error. And then all I can do is just turn it off, plug it back in, and hit eject. I'll fast forward past the color bars a bit and hit play. It's playing, but it's going to shut down. Incidentally, this is the camera that recorded this picture, by the way. Oh, now it's going to play. I wonder if it'll... I'm just going to let the thing play. Oh, no, see? It only went for a few seconds and then shut down, so definitely there's a problem. This time it snipped my tape. Yeah, this has got a definite transport problem on this. That's why it's going into that error. I guess I'll have to investigate further at some point whether I'm going to do that today or not. It's unlikely. I'm just going to stick this tape back together with some Scotch tape. I know you shouldn't do this with Scotch tape, but this is a garbage tape. It's a copy of a tape. It's one that's got lots of dropouts. And it's a copy. It's not the original footage. It was a digital copy made, so it's not like I've lost anything. It's a tape that I use just for testing camcorders of unknown condition. So I'll just splice that tape back together, and we're as good as new for now anyway. Make sure that there's no sticky part of the tape exposed. That's the key, is when you're splicing videotape, is that you got to make sure that you trim off all your splicing tape so there's no sticky residue that can make contact with the drum, or you're going to have bigger problems. Now, some will argue that you cannot splice videotape. Of course you can. You just have to make sure that you trim it off a bit so that there's no adhesive that could possibly make contact with the heads themselves. As long as you trim the tape, or trim the any excess adhesive tape off so that it can't make contact with the actual mechanism, then you're fine. Now I have a little tool here that I can wind this back in if I can find my little screwdriver. So my pick quick smaller one, just so happens that it fits. So I have a sneaking suspicion it's a take-up problem in here. The tape, the reel is not turning; it's sticking or something. As I say, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to solve this now on this unit, but I think we have a good idea where to look. If I pop open the circuit board again here, so I can see the transport, I can't operate it like this. It won't run when it's down like this. I just want to see if I can spot any reason why it's sticking on the take-up side here. See if there's anything I can spot in here that could be problematic. It's got to be something to do with the take-up side. Either the spool, although it goes into fast forward and it works, but on play it shuts down, so it's making me think that the take-up side is not turning, and that's also where it snipped the tape when I went to eject it. It snipped the tape, so I got to think it's something to do with the take-up side that's not turning when the unit is in play. If I remove those 4 screws again and take the entire deck out, I might be able to see what's going on, why it's doing what it's doing. I think the whole deck should just lift out on this thing, on this unit. And it just swings out just like that. It unplugs from here. Or maybe it doesn't unplug. It should unplug. There should be 2 plugs that plug into here, one over here, and this other one up here should unplug. No. Hard to get at, but anyway, this is the mechanism. That's got, is that sound deadening? I wanted to be able to turn the capstan motor and watch the take-up and supply spool, make sure that they're turning properly. I get a sneaking suspicion that this is where the fault is. There, that unplugs there. There, now the camera is separate from the DV deck. If I flip the board down, take some of this dust off the desk here. If I flip down the board, I should be able to spin the capstan motor from the back and just observe what it's doing. Make sure that the take-up and supply spools are actually turning properly. I have a sneaking suspicion that's what's happening, is that the take-up spool is sticking. Okay, here's the capstan motor. Let's turn this. I was turning the take-up spool, no problem. Nothing sticking there. I wonder if it's a sensor problem You know, we've had so many problems with connectors and stuff in the past not providing the right signals. I'm curious as to maybe we've got a connection problem here. We'll just undo these connectors and redo them. Wherever these lift up on this one. Take the board out. Do the same for these other connectors if I can get them open, and then close them up again just to reseat these little ribbon connectors, because we've seen these cause so many problems on the consumer cameras, right? You know, the number one fault on a lot of these cameras is these little connectors. You just take them apart, move them a bit, and put them back together, and a lot of times intermittent problems or problems with tape sensors not being read, they get fixed just by, you know, just undoing a connector, wiggling it a bit, and then reseating it. So I'm just curious as to maybe that's where the problem on this one is it's not reading a sensor and it's going into a shutdown state. And the only thing you can do is eject the tape and put the tape back in, and somehow the tape got caught once when I ejected it. This other one, where does it go? It goes over back here to this connector on the back. And then that's got this connector, and I bet you that one goes right to the sensors. So let's just make sure that this one here is also reseated. I'm just going to cut this out of the way. It's a sound deadening material, obviously, but it's in the way for what I need to do. And that's get this connector apart and put it back together. That one actually came apart more than I expected it would. It actually fell right apart on it. You're supposed to just lift these up, right? And then put the connector in and then push them back down. Normally they just lift up like that, and the cable itself will slip in and slip out. Right? Make sure the cable's seated and then push them down. Same with this one here, you lift them up like that, and then the cable can lift out, get reseated, and push it back down. So I just want to make sure that the cables are seated properly, and then we'll put it back together and try it again. And see that this one's falling apart. This connector is coming apart like this, and I don't think it's supposed to lift up like that. It's supposed to just tilt up. I don't see anything broken on here, but it just doesn't. It doesn't look like it's gripping properly. Normally this sits in here like this, and it lifts up. It lifts up like that, and then the ribbon goes in, and then it clamps down. The ribbon goes in like that, and then that sits down. That's how it's supposed to hold it in place. And then my cable is slipped through the back here. Drag it through. Like that. Okay, let's just reattach this circuit board again. Plug it in and give it a try and see whether it'll play or whether it's still gonna give me that error. These connectors are really, really short. But once the first one's in, the other ones are a little bit easier to seat. Once you get the first one in place, the other ones should go in a little easier, because the first one will hold the board in place so it's not moving around. Just a matter of getting them in place and snapping them shut. Okay, those four are snapped back in, and this connector goes into here. Like that. The board goes back up like that, and I'm just going to attach a couple screws here just to hold the board in place while I put the whole chassis back in. Someone's going to comment that there's too many boards in this camera too. I just know it. Okay, so that goes on like that. Either it's going to work or it's not. If it doesn't work, I'm not working on it again tonight. I'm done. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, I guess it'll have to wait until I really am desperate for something to work on. Power up the camera, hook it up to the monitor, see if anything happens when I turn it on. Will I get a picture? Apparently not. Something mustn't be plugged in right. I wonder what the hell it is. I think that plug's loose. That one wasn't pushed all the way in. Let's just try it again and see if I get anything different. Oh, I got color bars. Okay, well that's more than I got before. Let's just put the side on the camera again and see whether anything else happens. So that plug was loose. Fingers crossed that it's going to do something more than it did before. All right, this still has a problem with the tape player. It still shuts down after a few seconds with the same error. To see the camera portion itself was working, and it was a great camera. Manual focus lens. I think that's from my original 8mm Handycam, my original digital 8. And what's in that box there is probably a couple hundred 300 or couple hundred 3.5-inch floppy disks from back in the day when we put our software on floppy. I've got a box of floppies. I should just bulk erase them and toss them out because I'm sure they're no good at this point, but they've been sitting in that box for, you know, 25 years. Anyway, that's the beauty of these lenses, is a variable speed, right? You had variable speed zoom. Manual focus. The pile of turntables. Anyway, camera works. The tape transport, it's still chewing up tapes, and jamming, and well, not so much jamming, but just shutting down. So I'm going to leave it at this. Maybe some rainy day we'll get around to fixing this one, but I'm not in any hurry to fix it. It's basically just a decoration. This thing just sits in my living room on a tripod over in the corner, just to remind me of my production days when I was using this. And maybe that beta camera will end up replacing it, just because I think it looks cooler than this one. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. If someday down the road I decide to pursue this further, we'll make another video, but don't hold your breath. That'll be for a rainy day when I've got nothing else better to do. Thanks for watching.